Hello, and good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. My name's Chris Cruz, and I'm the VP of Marketing here at Zylo, and I'd like to welcome you to today's conversation on accelerating measurable business outcomes with Zylo's MCP. Thank you so much for taking time out of what I'm assuming and assured is a very busy day for you. I do think that you're going to find today's conversation worthwhile. As I was putting together the promotional material for this event, it really got me thinking, and I had to laugh to myself. Less than a year ago, I don't think I could have told you what a model context protocol was, let alone the value it could provide. And flash forward to today, we're at a point where I'm seeing firsthand examples from our clients on how Zylo's MCP is helping them to access critical data when they need it across their teams, and to drive more efficient, more powerful outcomes faster than I ever thought possible. So it really speaks to the rate of innovation and what's happening here at Zylo, but also just what's happening in general with AI and the capabilities there. And I'm really excited to share this example with MCP with you all today. Before we get rolling, I did want to cover just a few housekeeping items. First and foremost, I'd like to encourage all of you to engage with us in the Q&A today. I want to make sure that you as Zylo clients get your questions answered on MCP and anything relevant to that. And today we have a couple of special guests that are joining us in the Q&A. Our senior staff product manager, Jeff Adola Shahai, and Jeremy Spurgeon, who is our senior director of software engineering. So going to have some powerhouses in that Q&A ready to answer your questions if and when you're ready. Also, I wanted to let everyone know that today's session will be recorded, and we will be providing a copy of that recording within 24 hours, as well as some important links to the Zylo knowledge base for MCP to help quick start you in your adoption of MCP. So expect that to all come within 24 hours of today's session. So let's dive in here. Today we're going to be covering a couple of key topics. First and foremost, we're going to provide a refresher on Zylo's outcomes blueprint for SaaS management, and that's going to be covered by Corey. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the MCP and what it can actually do in terms of accelerating the outcomes that we drive with the outcomes blueprint. But also, we're going to talk a little bit about live demo of that, so you can see firsthand examples of use cases, and we'll see that all happen live in the MCP platform. And then, of course, we do want to reserve some time for Q&A today to make sure that you get your questions answered, especially those that we can't answer in real time in the Q&A function here in the platform. So again, if you need to familiarize yourself, just look over into the engagement section and you should see a tab for Q&A. You can add any questions you have there. You can also chat at us during today's session, and we'll do our best to keep engaged with you, and we'll make sure that we get your questions answered as well. So really excited about the speakers we have for today's session. Corey Wheeler is our co-founder here at Zylo, as well as our Chief Client Officer. And he's really responsible for ensuring all of your programs drive measurable, meaningful outcomes. And I honestly have never met anyone more passionate about our client success, or more passionate about client success in general. Corey is also celebrating 10 years here at Zylo, along with Zylo's 10-year anniversary. So a really important milestone for Corey and for Zylo as a business. So congrats to Corey on that. Really excited for his part of the presentation today. We're also joined, we'll be joined live by Colin Clark, who's one of our senior solution consultants here at Zylo. And he's been part of our team for over 3 years now. And during that time, he's worked with hundreds of enterprise clients to design solutions that result in meaningful, measurable outcomes like cost savings and strengthened compliance. Colin also knows the Zylo platform as well as anyone, and I'm just so thrilled that we were able to have him join us today to run the live demo of the MCP. So with all that said, I'm going to turn things over to Corey, and he's going to be talking a bit about our outcomes blueprint and what you should expect from outcomes in the Zylo SaaS management process.
Hello, everyone. Chris, thanks so much for that wonderful introduction. It's been incredibly exciting to celebrate our 10 years here at Zylo just a couple months ago, and it's really relevant to this conversation as well. But as Chris mentioned, I want to anchor on outcomes. Zylo is fully and wholly centered around outcomes for all of our clients, and it's really relevant to the MCP discussion we're going to have in just a moment. But as we mentioned, with 10 years in the space, pioneering SaaS management across IT, finance, procurement, SAM, FinOps, one thing remains crystal clear. Business outcomes are at the center of the why for our clients. And we align our entire client experience around three primary outcomes at Zylo. That is driving budget-reducing cost savings, operationalizing ongoing cost avoidance, and then building risk-reducing compliance outcome. And we do all of this via the implementation of a best-in-class SaaS and AI system of record, and then the establishment of business processes designed to maximize those outcomes. But the execution of outcome achievement across a distributed SaaS and AI technology stack, it's very complex. And most of our clients look to Zylo for guidance and best practices, which is why specifically we've built out our Zylo Outcomes Blueprint. Next slide. So this is the Zylo Outcomes Blueprint, and this is a little bit of a reveal today. It's actually a brand new version of the blueprint. So everyone here is seeing it for the very first time. The mission remains the same, but the articulation of how is clearer than ever. So when you start left to right, we certainly want to map out the objective for every one of our clients. What are you trying to accomplish by implementing a SaaS management program, by leveraging Zylo to be able to give you visibility and then actions to take across your environment? And that's really built with a centralized SaaS system of record. That's the foundation for any outcome-aligned successful SaaS management program. On the right, you'll see that we've introduced a new set of strategies that can be achieved with Zylo. And those are directly aligned to the three primary business outcomes of cost savings, cost avoidance, and compliance. And these strategies are the work streams implemented by leading SaaS management programs today. And this blueprint allows us to have that conversation to really crystallize what is SaaS management. Well, SaaS management begins with an outcome, and then it ends with executed strategies within your business today. But putting together the blueprint with strategies is really only the top line visual to extensive detail behind the scenes. So over the next few slides, I'll show you a link to each of these strategies and the individual steps required to complete them. So if we look at cost savings and renewal, and we know those strategies are license waste reduction, negotiation of your renewal pricing, pulling back your employee expensed applications or shadow IT, and then rationalizing your applications. It's easy to say that's a strategy, but it's very difficult to pull off. And so what we've then broken down for all of our clients is what are the steps that are needed to maximize each of those strategies, to execute them flawlessly, to drive cost savings. Each of these steps are supplemented by extensive detail, currently housed in our Zylo knowledge base, and then brought to every single one of our clients in each conversation as they're looking to set up their programs. So that's 10 years of working with hundreds and hundreds of enterprises, standing up SaaS management, seeing the discovery across every application that you've got, and then implementing strategies so that you can drive cost savings, cost avoidance, and compliance outcomes. Next slide. This is similar for every single one of our outcomes. Cost avoidance, managing your consumption cost detail. Those steps are extensive to roll out inside your organization, leveraging the data in Zylo and the automation in Zylo to build that program. Next slide. And finally, compliance, employee expensed app prevention at the top of those strategies. These steps with contextual detail provided from Zylo based on our 10-year history is typically what every client comes to us and asks. We see the information, the value that discovery provides. Now, how do we begin on our journey in a very distributed category across the organization? Our clients are surprised, typically. We found a lot more software than we realized we had. So how do you help us make sense of it and implement processes to execute to the outcomes that we're looking to drive? Now, outcomes, strategies, steps, and playbooks, they're all documented. But if there was a way to overlay these strategies with your actual data, where you're already working and innovating today, that's where value is met. And I think this is a good segue to transition to the discussion of our MCP server capability to learn more. And to do that, I'd like to introduce Colin Clark, Senior Solution Consultant here at Zylo, for a quick explanation. Take it away, Colin.
All right. Thank you so much, Corey. Cool. So what is an MCP server and why is it valuable? Right. So simple answer. Zylo's MCP server is basically a secure way to connect your LLM of choice. So whether that be Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, to your Zylo data. And in addition to your Zylo data, it also includes connection to all of our support documentation and, more importantly, all of our strategic playbooks. So essentially, you're training your LLM to know exactly everything that Zylo should be doing and best practices. So it really helps to get you to value quicker. You're going to not have to jump between dashboards. You're not going to have to run manual reports or wait on custom integrations. You're basically just using natural language. And that's what I'll show in just a minute, is how you can actually just ask a natural language question and get really powerful results, insights, as well as actions that you can perform directly into the Zylo platform, because we can actually write data back to the platform as we develop insights. How does it work? You basically will connect your Zylo instance to your AI client of choice, and then you just start asking the questions. If any actions come up that you'd like it to make, you can review those actions in your LLM and then push any changes to your live Zylo environment. So it's really powerful. It's going to give you that 360-degree view of all of your data. It's going to inform all of that data with our best practices and then allow you to make decisions and keep your environment up to date, eliminating data gaps and making everything a lot more efficient. Cool. So I'll pass it back to Corey.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you, Colin. So it's really important for everyone to understand really the capabilities within our MCP server. And they're twofold: read-only and read-write use cases. And when you think of those read-only use cases, this provides the capability to ask a natural language question and get an answer sourced from your live current data instead of building a static report and exporting that report. It's really important to understand that read-only access is permission-based. That allows you to provide the right level of information to the right user group. So you can see some of those examples of things you can do. Just asking your AI solution, hey, tell me the spend and usage and upcoming renewal detail for my Adobe subscription that's coming up for renewal. Identify any risks inside my stack, leveraging the Netscope scoring that you have directly in the product. Build reports for me in seconds versus configuring that directly in the interface. And most importantly, read-only use cases to understand the optimization opportunities that are coming. A typical query that our clients write after implementation is, okay, I've got $1 million bogey that we've got to meet on the year. Identify the waste on my upcoming renewals over the next 12 months that will form the opportunity that we are going after in the coming year. So really, really powerful use case that's just read-only. But when you combine that and look at the read-write use case, this is taking action on data. You heard Colin mention that just a little bit, but this is taking that action on data directly from that same conversation. Meaning you might be reassigning an app owner, you might be uploading a missing contract, you might be adjusting license counts, and you're never having to leave your AI tool that you are already working in. The second unlock for that, then really the unlock that I get excited about is combining the Zylo MCP with your other MCPs to be able to build automation. without needing technical resourcing to build automations today via our API, writing scripts, passing data between platforms, MCP changes the game on automation. So I want to look at those top 3 value areas for all of you to consider as you're thinking about the MCP capability. And then I'll get out of the way because I'm sure everybody's looking for Colin to show what this looks like. But really threefold. The first is accessing a decade of outcome-driven SaaS management expertise. It's everything I just talked through in the Outcomes Blueprint. The Outcomes Blueprint have clarity around strategies, steps, and then detailed playbooks for how to execute to your outcomes. When you're overlaying that with your data, this becomes incredibly powerful. The second value point is democratization of this critical data across your business. And this is a really powerful one for existing clients and a way to think about a new world of visibility for any of you evaluating Zylo today. And finally, it is the last value area is automating the toil of managing software and AI spend. So there's a lot of work required to build your system of record, to ensure that you're keeping it up to date, and to bring additional data into Zylo to make your data more valuable, to build that true system of record. And this last component is automation at scale. So as we drop down into what this looks like, you'll see a few quotes on each of these pages sourced directly from our clients that are leveraging the MCP solution today. But every single piece of the Zylo Outcomes Blueprint, strategies, steps, and playbooks comes right through that Zylo MCP. In addition to, as Colin mentioned, the whole of our knowledge base for technical support. You now have all of the knowledge that an internal Zylo employee that's worked here for many years has today at your fingertips. That means you can source your entire blueprint for your SaaS management program aligned to the how you'll actually use Zylo to discover, measure, manage, and optimize your SaaS stack. This is all with the overlay of your data. Today, our clients meet with our experienced SAEs and CSM teams and build programs together. Tomorrow, you will ask your Claude or your OpenAI LLM, how do I roll out a license reclamation program and where should I begin? The best practice overlaid with your data comes to you directly in an instant. So this has me incredibly excited. So this is the example of how do I hit my $1 million cost savings goal? How do I build out a showback model across my new AI critical tools, leveraging the data that I have in my platform today? This is a powerful combination for all clients, accessible immediately. Next slide. The second component here is the democratization of critical data across your business. Over the last 10 years, we've had many clients that vary in how they manage their central system of record. Some keep their system of record to a core group of users that build reports and automations to deliver out to the business. Others look to Zylo for their app owners to come into Zylo and take action directly in the UI. But often when that's happening, the visibility and insights are curated by these central SaaS management teams and then distributed out to app owners, to department heads, to CIOs and CFOs, those folks that don't have a need to actively work in Zylo today. Well, those days are over. Now you bring this data to anyone in the company, regardless of whether or not they use Zylo on a regular basis. You use natural language questions where anyone in your business can access the data in Zylo to understand all that there is to know about an app, a group of apps, or to be able to execute strategies directly on their own. So you think about this. This is every app owner that needs to understand anything about their application. Tell me about my utilization as we're 3 months ahead of the renewal. What's my opportunity before this renewal hits? And what do I need to do to prepare for this renewal? Well, that brings together all of the outcome framework detail and the best practices overlaid with your data that gives you a direct point-by-point, step-by-step instruction on how to get that done. This is really taking a democratized category. SaaS is owned by everybody across every organization, and this is democratizing that aggregated data back out to your organization. And I get so excited about this one because I've always wanted Zylo just to answer questions for me very naturally and with context. And this is the solution to do just that. And finally, many companies out there, they're worried about headless SaaS platforms. The world of AI means that what do we need a UI for each and every day? Well, we're not worried about that. We believe the aggregation of all of your SaaS and AI data is the most valuable investment across your business, and the insights and the detail in Zylo should be made available to everyone on demand across your organization. Remember, it follows permissions as well, so you create that visibility that you can distribute out into your organization. And finally, one more slide, automating the toil of managing software and AI spend. This is the read-write use case unlock. It's automation. That's what it is. Our clients today use a variety of platforms to build their SaaS and AI system of record. From ERP and payment solutions, contract management solutions, enterprise architecture solutions, compliance solutions. Those are all critical data sources that add power to your SaaS system of record. But if there's not a direct integration available for this, our clients have built scripts or automations to bring this data in and out of Zylo, or they've manually brought this data into Zylo. Well, with a connected MCP server strategy, now you can automate this toil work and drive actions across other business systems. So that is bringing in key contract, app owner, utilization data on demand. It's automating actions from Zylo, potentially into your central service desk solution. It's scaling governance actions that used to be manual. Think of app owners leaving the organization where new applications need to be reassigned or existing applications need to be reassigned. You can do this all in one step within your MCP server in your LLM. So SaaS and AI automation has arrived. It's in the hands of all of our users now via the MCP server capability. So I'm sure you're all waiting to see this in action. So I'll turn this back over to Colin to walk through live. Colin, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Corey. All right. Looks like my screen has popped up. All right. So today's demo is going to be all within my LLM of choice, which is Claude. So I've done a little bit of homework ahead of time. I've went ahead and connected the MCP, and I've already plugged in a couple of prompts. I wanted to kind of make this quick and snappy so you guys can really get an idea of the outcomes that we're driving through this technology. So got a couple different use cases here that I'll walk you through. I'll go ahead and read the prompts first, and then I'll talk through everything that the tool is doing in order to generate the insights and actions within the Zylo data. So number one, I've got a cost savings use case that I've created here. So what I plugged in was, I'm a software asset manager, and I need to find all applications and active contracts in Zylo that are missing renewal alerts. So that's important, right? I need to have alerts so that I can effectively manage my renewals. So I want to find those missing alerts. Please prioritize the results by financial spend risk. So you already start to think, maybe I have lots and lots of applications that are missing alerts. I want to get the most important ones first. And I want to group them into categories high, medium, and low risk so I can quickly see which renewals need immediate attention and avoid those unexpected auto renewals. So probably a common use case that you guys would be doing on a pretty regular basis, especially when you're first getting stood up and started with Zylo. All right. So what is Claude able to do now? Well, it's actually loading. If I look at this used a skill, loaded tools, this is all that playbook data. It's actually knows how to go in, query the data, create the schemas, and create the results and the insights that I'm looking for. And that result is I've got this full list, and it's telling me, hey, 485 of 495 active apps at 98% are actually missing these renewal alerts. So I've got some work to do, but that's why it's important that I have a prioritized list, right? So I don't need to worry about every single app under the sun. It's going to actually tell me the most important, the high spend apps that really need attention. So it's broken those down into my high risk applications, my medium risk. It's breaking down my auto renewal exposure as well. So it's really giving me that full playbook of everything I need to do as far as getting these alerts set up. Now, one thing that's called out, which is interesting, is 4 of my highest spend apps have no contract at all. So that's probably a problem, right? Snowflake, Vertex AI, OpenAI, and Adobe Creative Cloud. And to me, when I was reading that list, I thought, Adobe Creative Cloud is a weird one because that's one of our big applications that we're always worried about that renewal, and we're always worried about the license management for that application. So I really want to focus on that one. And it's weird to me that we don't have a contract in place yet for that one. So we talked about how MCP allows us to combine data sources, right? So in the case of my Claude, I've got it connected to my contract repository. So what I've said is, hey, Adobe Creative Cloud, that's a big one. Look in my contract repository and tell me if I've already got a contract for that one. And it says, yep, found that contract. It's in your it's an invoice and it's in your repository. Let me go ahead and scan the document, which is done here. It's telling me all of the details that are in that document. It's telling me the renewal date, which is coming up here in a few weeks. I'm really glad that I found this one. And it's highlighting any kind of data gaps that it's seeing. If there's anything that's in Zylo that's kind of not matching up with that. So like if the license counts are different than what's in the contract, it's going to highlight some of that stuff. And then finally, we get to our write use case. Okay, so we talked about the read write use. So everything we've done so far is essentially reading data and interpreting the data that's in Zylo. But now I want to actually say, hey, just go ahead and create that contract. You've got the contract, parse through it, create a new contract in Zylo. And then it also has gone ahead and created all of my alerts for this application. So really within just, if you can imagine, within just this one update to the prompt, I've actually created a contract and I've created all the alerts for this application. So my work is essentially done. You can imagine that can be a process. If we don't have a tool like this, it's pulling everything together into one place. So that's an example of driving cost savings and creating those efficiencies in a read-write use case. Next, I'd like to go into a reporting use case. So let me go ahead and just scroll to the top here so we get an example here. So a lot of times Zylo will say that SaaS management is a team sport, right? We have to get everybody on the same page so that we can actually drive organizational change and perform some of these optimizations. Like, obviously if I go and say, hey, we want to take away all of these licenses, there's going to be people within the organization that say, oh, I don't want to do that. I want my people to have these licenses. They may need it someday. So what I've done here, I'll go ahead and read the prompt, is I've said, I'm a SaaS program manager looking to save cost. I need a written optimization recommendation for my next Miro renewal, fully backed by usage and spend data. Please pull the live usage metrics and current spend for Miro and draft a clear, professionally written business case that I can hand directly to stakeholders and executives for quick approval. And of course, we see it's gone in. It's done all of the rendering for me. It's looking at my license data, my contract data, as well as my spend, providing me with a summary, some important insights, and then finally, it's created this full dossier that includes all of the spend optimization data. This is all the today state and future state of how we could actually save money while still maintaining good buffer, not taking away licenses from individuals who frequently use the application, and providing a full savings plan, which is 23.8% of the current price that we're paying for the application. So you can imagine if I'm able to actually go to my head of engineering or my head of product and say, listen, I know that you want everybody to have Miro licenses, but here's the data. Here's the data on people, how they're actually using the application. Pretty powerful as far as changing people's minds and creating that organizational change so that you can actually truly save costs on these applications. And then finally, let me go ahead and X out of this. I have a cost avoidance use case. So this is a big one. If we're looking at, let's say an individual application, and I'll go ahead and read the prompt. I'm a financial IT analyst, and I need to assess app utilization for Smartsheet to prioritize cost avoidance. A lot of times with applications, it's not necessarily always the most important at renewal, to manage licenses. We may need to actually prevent these additional costs and recover licenses programmatically in the middle of renewals as well. So we have a license cost avoidance playbook that it's actually querying for this, pulling the data for Smartsheet, and high level. I mean, how powerful is this to just say, hey, you've got $216,000 in recoverable license right now. You have avoidance that can be actioned right this minute to actually prevent future payments. And then it's also telling me, hey, my renewal is 25 days out. So actually you may want to do some deeper license management on this to really understand at renewal how many seats we actually need to renew, because we can actually save some cost there as well. Cool. So hopefully you guys get the idea of some of these use cases. I'm really excited to hear your questions as well. So I'll pass it back to Corey, I believe, or Chris.
Thanks a bunch, Colin.
Thanks, Chris.
And so, let's talk a little bit about just revisiting the value here that this drives. I think Corey did such a great job of really breaking down MCP into the core values that it drives, and I thought it would be good to revisit those. It's really about putting that decade of experience that Zylo has driving meaningful outcomes for our clients at your fingertips by training the MCP on the blueprints, on the processes, on the strategies that we have. It really makes that accessible for you and your entire team. Very exciting. It also makes the data accessible. Historically, as Corey touched on, and Colin as well, you'd have to get into the Zylo platform, know how to use the UI, pull together reports, and make those reports accessible for the folks that need them. With the MCP, that data becomes available to everyone on your team that you see fit where they're doing their work today, which is the LLMs they're using on a daily basis. So it's putting that incredibly powerful data that Zylo has at the access of everyone that needs it in real time when they need it, as opposed to having to wait for reports or outputs to be pulled from Zylo. And then, as Colin, I hope you agree, demonstrated in a very meaningful way, the MCP can also help automate some of the toil work that it's required to effectively run your SaaS management program. So combining those three components together, I hope you can all see the value of MCP and why we are so excited about it, and why our clients that are using it are getting so excited about it. And I believe we're just scratching the surface of what's capable here. If you really start to combine the MCP's capability to connect with multiple data sources and write to multiple sources, it really becomes a very, very powerful capability. So let's talk a little bit about next steps. And of course, we want to reserve some time for the Q&A here. First and foremost, I want to let everyone know on this call for Zylo's clients that our knowledge base for MCP is as rich as any knowledge base we've built for any product feature or product capability here at Zylo. There's detail on how to get started. There's details on how to build the business case to get an MCP connection made within your organization. There are some example prompts to get you started for those of you who are maybe a little bit newer to using an LLM. Really, there's a very rich resource of information that's readily available for you as a Zylo client. We will make sure to send along a direct link to that knowledge base for those of you who have any trouble finding it, as well, of course, as a recording for today's session and answers to any questions that we might not be able to get to today. But looking at the Q&A, I think we're going to be able to handle all the questions that come in. But expect to see all that coming from me. And if you have any questions, or if you have any trouble getting a hold of a contact here at Zylo, you can always email me directly, Chris@Zylo, and I will make sure that I coordinate getting you access to the right individuals or the right answers for any questions you may have. So want to make sure that you walk away today excited about the MCP capability, but also with these resources that you have everything that you need in order to get it rolling at your organization. So with that said, give me just a moment here. I'm going to pull on Corey and Colin in case there are any additional questions. And Colin, I believe that's you. Yeah, so let's take a look here and see, are there any questions that we did not get to? It looks like really the only question from the audience today, which I was a little surprised. I was expecting to see quite a bit, just given MCP is kind of a new, is the LLM list that we have capability to connect to. And yeah, any LLM that can connect to a remote MCP is viable for this solution. So wherever your organization is currently doing their work, it should be readily available for you today. How do we control who can access Zylo data in an enterprise tool like Glean, for example? That's just a question that just came in. Jeff or Jamie, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that one. While we're waiting on an answer for that question, if we do not get to that one, Robbie, I will make sure we follow on with an email.
And I can answer that one if
Okay.
it makes sense.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so one important concept is that the Zylo MCP is built on the Zylo API. So basically anything the API can do, the MCP can do. With that, there's different settings you can create when you actually create your API key. So if we have a specific API key that is connecting your Claude to your Zylo, you can actually set the permissions on a per key basis. So we could have, we've got renewal individuals that are supposed to have access to contracts, but they're not supposed to have access to spend data. We can actually create an API key that locks down those specific permissions. So just like any other permission set in Zylo, you can create that with your API key.
Excellent. Thanks, Colin. A little bit of a detailed question here, but I do want to make sure we hit on it. Speaking of toil, I assume the answer is yes, but I just want to make sure when it comes to updating usage information for apps that do not have direct integrations or an API available, a CSV becomes the last resort sometimes. Can we use MCP to write usage information if the application and mapping on the Zylo side already exists?
And I can take this one. So you can do that if that application is connected via MCP server into your LLM as well. So that is the only limitation there. So that is two APIs in effect speaking to each other. And you'd be able to use natural language to extract data and bring that into Zylo just as you would through the API. So a good probably next step for everybody on the call is to understand the MCP server environment that you have in your current companies, what has been set up, and start to think about, hey, if I start bringing together several of my consistent applications that need to speak to each other, could we create an MCP server-based approach to automate this detail back and forth very quickly versus a knowingly, probably more cumbersome technical integration type of project. So the only limitation there is that application would also be connected into the MCP server.
Yep. And the other thing I would add to that is one really powerful thing that I found with regard to Usage Connect and uploading usage reports with the MCP. And this is really more just an LLM use case, but it also ties into the MCP use case. Is like, imagine I've got a report for an application, like maybe a usage report for Adobe, and then I've got other reports and other data sources. Like maybe I've got Microsoft Intune, which is tracking installs. Maybe I've got Jamf, which is tracking launches of the application within the application. If I have some IT resource that says, hey, here's a report of all of this data, these application launches, I can use my LLM to combine those data sources, say, hey, combine these data sources across, let's say email address as the unique identifier, and upload it and create a usage connect in the Zylo. That's absolutely a use case that I've done many times.
Thanks for that, Colin. Got another one here, a little bit more detailed. If a CMDB like ServiceNow is the source and the data is stale, what can Zylo do to improve it? I think there's lots of possibilities there, but kind of curious to hear, Colin, if you've got any thoughts on that, or if Jeff or Jamie.
Yeah, I can definitely go first. Yeah. I mean, so any application, this is probably one of the core use cases that's the most powerful. with the MCP is if I've got my ServiceNow MCP connected, I've got my Zylo MCP connected, I can use it to identify any data gaps, so it can actually tell me if the data is stale, first of all. And then secondly, we can say, okay, use Zylo as the source of truth for whatever, maybe the spend, and update those spend categories in ServiceNow. So you can absolutely do that.
Yeah, I'll throw gas on that one because I'm so excited about it. The days of needing to get those technical resources are behind us. It is, do we have MCPs connected? So what Colin just walked through, that is a primary use case. Often our clients will tell us we have a CMDB, but their CMDB is not comprehensive. We find comprehensive discovery of every single application you have, and then we're finding those applications as they're purchased each and every day. So if you think about that use case, that is all new applications that are discovered populate my CMDB on a daily basis. Then whatever information you've got in your CMDB can be transported directly into Zylo. So app owners that are sitting in my CMDB today, transport that data over to Zylo. I want to have app owners for every single one of my applications. CMDBs and Zylo are often tightly aligned, but moving that data between platforms often takes more work than it should. With the introduction of MCP Server, now you can query, read, write, and update that data. That's a hugely powerful use case. That ensures that your CMDB is always accurate. I think that's what we hear that keeps folks up at night is we have a CMDB, but we know it's not accurate. And there's some good information in there, but not all. Zylo completes that picture. And then the information that you do have in your CMDB, that's an input to Zylo during your implementation or just after to really provide a rich data set across both environments.
Thanks so much for that, Corey. And it does look like that's hit on the key questions that come in today. Thank you so much for those of you who got involved and had your questions. It really does mean a lot for you to be engaged in these conversations. I hope that you all will walk away from today with some excitement around the MCP capabilities. For those of you who already have it connected, maybe it triggers some new ideas on how you can use it. But Corey said it, in such a great way that there's so much that can happen when you think about the ability for both read and write with MCP in terms of not just eliminating the toil, but really truly automating many key components of your SaaS management program and improving the data even in many instances. So really excited about these capabilities. Expect to see follow-on information from Zylo about MCP and our capabilities there. But in the meantime, please look out from the email from me with the follow-on information. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to respond. And then, of course, for the Zylo clients, your client success team is here to answer your questions and ensure you get the most out of this very exciting new feature. So thank you all for joining us today. And very sincerely, Corey, Colin, thank you so much for joining today's conversation. I thought it was a very good example of what's possible with MCP. So thanks, everyone. We'll talk soon and look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.